Can Google be trusted to police itself? Dick Costolo quits as Twitter CEO. And what really happened to the dinosaurs? All that more in This Week in Organic, episode number 3.
This Week's in Organic. Live from London on thisweekinorganic.com.
Broadcasting live from London, welcome to This Week in Organic, the weekly show that debates the ramifications of the latest SEO and content marketing news. Sign up to watch the next show live at thisweekinorganic.com. Alright, hello and welcome. I'm David Bain, and each week I'll be joined by some knowledgeable, opinionated folks to discuss the latest happenings in anything that impacts organic traffic. And as for you, dear viewer, get involved. We'd love to hear your opinion too. So just use the hashtag TWIO on Twitter, that's TWIO, and if you're watching live, your thoughts will magically appear in the chat box to my left-hand side. So let's find out more about today's guests, where they're from, and what's caught their attention this week. So, starting off with Anne. Anne, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
so I'm introducing myself, right?
Yes, please. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm Anne Smarty. I'm brand and community manager at Internet Marketing Ninjas. I'm also co-founder of Viral Content Bars, and I'm founder of My Blog View, the free platform for bloggers. I also blog around the web. My personal website is seosmarty.com, but I also contribute to Small Biz Trends, Search Engine Journal, Entrepreneur, and many other sites where you can find me. And you can also follow me on Twitter as seosmarty, where I share everything I write.
It's hard not to find you if you're involved in anything to do with SEO, isn't it? Well, Anne, has anything in particular caught your eye in terms of SEO and content marketing this week?
Yeah, that penalty, the Google's project, not its project, but they invested project penalty has been all over the web this week. So I would love to see what others think about that.
Yeah, interesting. I'm sure we'll have a good discussion about that. So let's move on to Jeff.
Thanks for having me. Jeff Sauer. I run a blog called Jefflytics, and I've been, basically focusing on organic search, PPC and analytics for the last 10 plus years, and that's really my background. Went on the agency side, and now I'm more on the education side. So I teach people how to get interested in how to do internet marketing.
Okay, lovely, Yanni. You've certainly published some amazing articles in Jefflytics. Loads of top blogs, top websites have picked out and linked back to them. So if you haven't checked it before, check out the Jefflytics blog. But let's move on to Lucas.
Hi, it's good to be here. I'm Lucas Zalesny, and I'm working as a head of organic acquisition in Newswitch. For the last 10 years, I had the pleasure to work for different brands as an in-house marketer, and right now I am in Bucharest, where I was speaking on a conference, so I'm trying to be very active on these events to share knowledge with people.
Okay, lovely. And I'm sure everyone would...
Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, well, welcome. I'm sure everyone would recognize you more if you put on your hat. Maybe without your headphones, that's
I
fine.
can do this for a sec.
Ah, yes, it is you. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And let's move on to Chris. Chris, how you doing?
Doing good, David. Thanks for having me.
Great. Okay. Well, would you like to introduce yourself and perhaps give us a flavor of any particular topic that caught your interest this week?
Okay, yeah. So I'm the president of RankKO. We specialize in online reputation management, which a lot of people don't realize is a form of SEO. It's just kind of reverse. Instead of trying to rank one website for a few keywords, you're trying to rank all websites for one keyword. So it's still SEO. It's just a different version. But so I've worked. My background is mostly in SEO. I've worked the full spectrum as a freelancer, in-house, at an agency, and then finally moved on to form my own agency. And as far as things that have caught my attention this week in SEO and organic is Google Now is providing relevant information based on your text messages and things like that. And I think that that's a huge opportunity, and it kind of goes with Twitter. Just that Google Now is really going to start providing more information based on all the data it has from email, text, and who knows what next, maybe even voice in the near future.
Yeah, it's amazing. We'd obviously Danny Sullivan tweeting from Paris and actually saying that he'd searched from underneath the Eiffel Tower, saying how tall is it, and Google, of course, knew what he was referring to. So Google Now, Google Voice Search getting a lot more intelligent, and that'll be a good discussion point as well. But let's start off on the question that's on everyone's lips, and that is, what happened to the dinosaurs? Because, of course, that is a question that a few people asked Google this week, and they delivered a piece of content that wasn't very relevant at all. They delivered a piece of content from 2007 telling us that dinosaurs were used to indoctrinate children. But it's a piece of content, that was very controversial. It was a very old piece of content, and obviously it was a direct answer. So I guess what I'm really referring to is here, what is the future regarding direct answers on Google? Is this something that if Google keeps up delivering content that's not great, that it can't keep on going with this because it's just not delivering high quality content? Or is this something that'll continue to refine and get right eventually, and it's a good concept? Who's really in favor of direct answers here? Okay, not very many people. Okay, a better question. Anne, do you think that direct answers is something that is here to stay when it comes to Google search?
I don't think so. I think they will give it up, as well as they gave up authorship at some time. I'm not sure if it's possible to teach a machine to understand the right question, and to many answers there is no the right question. There's some answers are subjective. Some of them are just outdated, and some of them are just not right. And it's especially dangerous when it comes to medical advice, for example. It's dangerous. Now that many people don't know what are dinosaurs now, that's not very dangerous. But when it comes to how to treat something, and some of those things can be really urgent, and they get absolutely incorrect advice, that's very dangerous. But that's not even the issue. I think that unless we understand ourselves what the right answer is, we are not able to teach the machine to do that. So no matter how well they go into semantic analysis and how smart the machine is, I don't see how those answers can be really something that people could use. So I'm skeptical. I think that they will give it up.
Okay, that's
but
interesting.
It's useful. Right now it's useful for them because they analyze the language much better with those. They have direct response of people who see those answers, so they can understand how well their machine is doing. But I guess that's useful data for them, but it has no future. That's my...
I tend to disagree a little bit there, because I think that Google, their future is entirely invested in understanding language even more. And so this is just a first step in it, but I think there's a lot of incentive for them to get this right, to get this technology right.
Yeah, but my point is, I'm sorry, I'll just, my last point. My point is, it's not about the language. It's not about how well they understand the language. I can understand the language, but I cannot give the correct answer to the question. And to many questions, there are no correct answers. So it's not always about the questions. It's about interpreting facts, interpreting statistics, interpreting different opinions. So all of that. So it's more than just language understanding.
So by the sound of it, Google has two different options. It can either choose to deliver direct answers for queries that it's much more confident that it knows the answer to, or it can maybe just stop doing this and deliver SERPs or try other things in the future. But and you think it's more likely that in the future, just to clarify, that it's more likely just to stop delivering direct answers altogether?
Yes, I think they will stop it, like they did with authorship.
Okay, Jeff, so you were talking a little bit about it there. Is that your opinion as well, or do you think they'll continue to test it?
I think that they'll continue to test it, but I would say that if this takes away from their ad revenue, then they might get rid of it. But other than that, I think they are trying to have searchers define what is the right answer. And so they're looking for searchers to click on things and to go through, and I'm sure they have metrics around it. So they're taking a very data-driven approach to this. If this gets their users more satisfied with their searches, they'll continue to do it, as long as it doesn't conflict with their advertising revenue. And so if they have people who search less often because of this, and they have less opportunities to monetize, then they'll get rid of it. But I think that the key here that I see is a lot of times they're monetizing. These are non-commercial queries. These are not queries that people put out there in order to the queries are not commercial that they're using this for. Okay.
I just wanted to say that, David, if I can say just 2 words, I think the problem also is that we're treating Google as it's just a medium. Yeah, back in the days, 30 years ago, you could buy a crappy book with some things that never existed, and some people could take this as a true, and they would be in the same situation that we are right now with Google. And I think that the problem is that Google is so widely accessible that people intentionally are taking that everything what is written there is right. And this is like this meme, like, oh, someone lied in the internet. No, that would never happen. So I think this is also another problem, that we need to remember that Google is just a medium. Even answering our question is just the medium, and it's our subjective way of judging if this is right or not.
Chris, I mean, obviously you're involved in reputation management. Do you see direct answers impacting the reputation of the clients that you represent?
Not so much with the reputation management side of things, but I will say I do think that they're going to continue to work on this and try to improve the direct answers. I mean, their goal is to make this all the information on the internet accessible, and I think I heard in a video Larry Page saying that one of his big goals was to just make Siri as advanced as possible and get information as easily and quickly to people as humanly possible. And basically what I'm thinking is they're going to take this to another level. Okay, Google Glass is kind of not a main thing right now. It's it's put on the back burner, but I know it's coming back. And I think that information from Knowledge Graph and the direct answers, all that information is going to be right in front of you once Google Glass and any kind of wearable technology is coming out. And I think when people are and it kind of ties into the Google Now thing, it's just everything's about getting that information in front of people so that they're not searching. So when you're talking on your phone, Google's probably going to be listening to the words you're saying, the keywords. You're talking about a restaurant, it's going to show you. It's going to put that information for the restaurant in front of you. You're going to be able to make a reservation. You're asking questions. It's going to give you answers. All that information, they want to put it right in front of you, and I think they're going to continue to work on that.
You talk about talking on your phone there. Are you referring to a phone conversation, or are you talking about using your voice to actually conduct a search? And if so, do you actually see the majority or lots of people doing that in the future? Or do you think the majority of people will still carry on typing in searches into their phone? Because obviously Google are investing a lot into voice search at the moment.
Yeah, I'm talking about you're having a phone conversation just between you and another person, and they're listening to the keywords that are being said in your conversation. So if you mention a restaurant, they're going to show you information about that restaurant in case you wanna make a reservation or see their hours of operation, things like that. It's essentially the same thing that they're doing now with email and ads and text messages and Google Now. It's just I think that's the ultimate level, is whenever you're talking, whenever you're emailing, searching Google, whatever it may be, any communication, even Twitter, all that communication is going to be analyzed, and they're going to start putting that information in front of you as quickly and easily as possible, so that you're not doing any clicks. There's 0 clicks, 0 searches.
So does anyone here actually regularly use Google Voice Search instead of actually typing things into their phone?
I just started to using voice recognition, but not for search, for like writing. So like if I need quickly to write something and I really don't have a time, I'm just talking to my phone, and I just started doing this recently. Moreover, I've been shocked how good it is for Apple device that even my mother tongue, which is Polish, is very good with Polish language, which is like I never seen something like that before. But when you had interview with me a couple of weeks ago, I've been kind of skeptic regarding to Siri. And I'm thinking that I'm still skeptic because I cannot imagine 30 people in the bus at morning going to office doing voice search. That would be really, from one side, annoying, and from the other side, you're destroying this kind of privacy curtain where you're typing restaurant around me or Indian restaurant in South London, and when you have your mobile and you're like, hey Siri, tell me where is the closest restaurant, and 30 other people are doing the same 8 o'clock at morning. So I am a little convinced in terms of like, okay, I can write an article very quickly talking to my phone, and I'm using this for Evernote, for example, but search, I would like to stay with tapping because I like this a little curtain of the privacy.
So is Apple and Google maybe doing the wrong thing by investing so much into voice search, or is this something that has an impact on other services that they're going to offer?
I think that a lot of that has something to do with how we used to doing things, and we know that we are not the youngest generation nowadays. People will get different habits and will get used to different things. I, for one, use Siri to find local restaurants, probably not daily but weekly, but that's about it. I use it for local search. So for local classes, local shops, and she just started understanding me, so that's a good win. My accent, yeah, but she didn't understand me last year when I was. Now she does. So I'm spending more time with her.
I love the fact that you call her and she. That's nice.
She talks like a woman. So what can I do? But I'm not searching for regular things there because that's not usually what I do on the go. On the go, I use local phrases for sure to find stuff that's nearby. But for regular research and writing or reading, I definitely use web and just searching with typing. But I can tell that kids will be different. So whatever technology will expose them to, they will probably pick that up.
Okay, just to put out another thought there. Maybe Google could be using voice search as a way to actually train its little bots on different accents to actually make it better at doing things like transcribing text and detecting podcasts and actually being able to rank them based upon just audio and nothing to do with the text beside them.
Absolutely. That dates all the way back to the free 411 service that Google offered, the 1-800-FREE-411 or Google 411, where you could get any information with your voice. So I think they look at voice as an input to search. So it's not necessarily voice search that they're concerned about. It's more voice as an overall indexation method, to be able to understand what voice is saying and to index it and to get all that information and make it available. Because once again, they're trying to access all the world's information. So voice is a analog information that they're making digital, and I would agree that the search interface is a great way for that to happen.
It's all about looking into ulterior meanings, I guess, or meanings behind what might be obvious with regards to what Google and other big technology companies are trying to do, because they must have big plans in place for the future, and it's not necessarily about offering one service. It's about how each service relates to one another and how they can talk to each other, I guess, as well.
Yeah, it's the same concept as the reverse image search. So when you do a reverse image search, Google will tell you, this is the best search term or recommended keyword or search term for this image, and basically what they're doing with YouTube is they're taking that frame, and every frame they're able to make a recommendation on the keyword for that frame. So as you have a video, you can put all those keywords together and kind of have some additional data for the video.
So talking about Google's different services, last year they invested in a company called Thumbtack. As Anne suggested actually in the introduction, Thumbtack have actually been penalised by Google, and even though they've invested in them, if you search Google now for the brand name Thumbtack, it doesn't even come up at all. But can Google actually be trusted to police themselves? So any brands that they might own, can they be trusted to actually treat them in a manner that they might treat competing brands? Is that something that is going to be a big concern in the future, possibly with Google having such a big control over search results? And you talked about that a little bit initially. What's your thoughts on that?
I think one of the most interesting questions here is, would it have been penalized unless the case had gone public? We'll never know, because it first, I forgot the name, but some very public SEO figure blogged about their link practices, and when that article went public, went viral, only after that the site was penalized. So would it have happened unless it hadn't gone public? So we never know. What I think, whether we can trust Google, no, and we cannot trust anyone in this world, but their projects are very public. I'm sure they recognize that the whole world is watching what they are doing and what their capital-backed projects are doing as well. So whether we can trust them or not, my answer is of course no. But we have the community that will help to police that.
Yeah, I mean that's great, and that can be part of the solution. Of course, in Europe you've got the EU and antitrust legislation, but that kind of maybe antitrust focus is less likely in the States, possibly. Do you in the States hope that the European Union takes fairly strong arm tactics towards big corporations like Google and perhaps Microsoft in the past? Or do you view that as a negative? Do you think it's better for the public, for community to deal with these kind of things?
I have no idea why Google feels so good in the United States. I mean, no anti-monopoly committee has ever touched it. I don't know why. I think that it's important for this country because they offer so many jobs and they are very good for economy. I would like to see what others think, because I'm not really that high level expert in that, whether we need that antitrust committee and whether it will help or not. I guess we are doing a pretty good job right now, and Google has to listen to us, which is awesome. So I would love to see what others think as well.
Oh, Lucas, you're our European representative, so what's your opinion on this?
As a European representative, I think that we could observe this kind of similar actions in the past. I'm thinking right now about Google Japan, and I'm thinking about one price comparison website that's been acquired by Google that right after been penalized. So I'm not surprised. But answering this question, if we can trust this or not, well, I think that sometimes you can feel that Google become a victim of own success. Yeah, there is no competitor, and some government legislator are trying to kind of like control this a little. So far, I think there was no proof that it was working very well. However, from the other side, you can see that Google is very, very protective about organic results. So they really call this organic, and they're really doing a lot to make this still stay organic, and that's penalizing own business they acquired is one of the outcome of this politics. It's very difficult to answer if we can trust this. This is at the end of the day, it's a company which is trying to generate profit, and I think that would be my conclusion. We are also a little guilty because we are the people who sometimes may complain, but then next second we as SEOs, next second we open in Google to find something around because we know that Google is serving the best results. So very difficult question to answer, very direct.
Jeff,
I think no, Google. They're not. They let's go back to the original founders of Google. They're computer scientists, and their goal is, above all else, to find all the information possible, and they don't really think about barriers. They don't think with a human element at all. It's basically a computational program to gather as much information as they can and to do whatever they want to with it. So I'm not sure that antitrust is the right way to get them to stop doing that, because that's what they're going to do. But it's more, how do you make sure that they don't get out of control? How do they not take it 3 levels past where they should, and to turn it into something that could be actually dangerous for the world? And that's really my concern with what they're doing here. And I think the other problem we face is that Google has 50,000 plus employees, and all these employees are focused on doing different things. So I don't know if they all are coordinated. And so doing all this, catching all this data, doing everything they can, getting away with whatever they can within the frameworks of the U.S. Is more dangerous because there's nobody regulating just what they're doing, and there's no kill switch involved in order to just say you can't do this anymore. And that's what worries me the most is more of the long-term implications to the overall world and all the intelligence they're gathering and what they use that for.
So, Chris, how do you walk the line then between increased growth and profitability and trying to deliver information that is independent and accurate?
I think that's what they're trying to do, is walk that line. And in the U.S. it seems to be a bit more lenient, but in Europe they're trying to break up different parts of Google into different companies, different entities, and then another challenge they're having is some of these countries are insisting that the data be stored within the country, so it is a fine line that they need to walk, but I think they're going to keep finding solutions and ways to move forward. I don't think it's going to slow them down at all.
Well, bit of a challenge there. I guess watch this space. It's incredible because it's such an evolving area. We're obviously in an industry that hasn't existed before, so to a certain degree, companies like Google have to make the rules as they go along. And then you've got governments who had previous rules and laws that didn't really apply to what is actually happening now at the moment, and they're scrambling to actually catch up. Perhaps it could be argued that it's actually governments that aren't doing a good job and aren't on the top of things. Is anyone quite concerned about how behind different governments are about understanding what big companies like Google are up to nowadays?
I was reading recently, there's what like German government was trying to ask Google to have an access to organic algorithm, and obviously I think it will never happen. And another article I was reading when I think someone from France was trying to convince that Google should pay newspapers for delivering traffic, which is totally flipping whole concept, because it was never like that. Always websites had to pay for traffic. So Google was like, I think that would be right to say that they were like, so we can turn this off. And it already happened, as far as I was reading, in Spain. So it's very, I think it doesn't make me worry. It doesn't make me worry at all. But it's very much like you said, that some solutions didn't catch up, and this industry is evolving so fast that sometimes some solutions are not quite working for what we have right now.
I mean, it's not only Google that's changing. We've got companies like Apple that are starting to tiptoe into search a little bit more with their involvement in maps and searches within there as well. But let's talk about that just in a minute.
You're listening to This Week in Organic, live from London, on thisweekinorganic.com.
But first of all, I'd just like to say that I'm pleased to say that This Week in Organic is now a video podcast on iTunes. So if you haven't subscribed to that, just go to thisweekinorganic.com/iTunes and you'll go straight to the show. So, and when you're at it, of course, rate it and review it as well. So every little helps with that, and that would be much appreciated. But I was just talking about Apple Maps there, and Apple have announced recently that they're going to be including things like transit within their map service. I mean, I've got an iPhone, but I use the Google Maps app, for all kind of walking about London, different places, because I find the Google Maps service just a little bit better and more information on there. Does anyone here actually use, first of all, an iPhone and also the Apple Maps service on a regular basis?
Yeah, that's what I use.
You use that? Okay. So do you find that better than the Google Maps service?
I haven't used the Google Maps on iPhone.
Okay, wow. And do you think that Apple are continually improving their map service? Have you noticed different updates over the last few months, I guess?
I wouldn't say there's been too many updates. What I don't like about it, though, is the reviews. When you open up the reviews, it opens it up in Yelp. I wish I could I don't want to have to load another app. It takes too long, and then I got to switch back to the other one. So I think that's an area of improvement there, is the reviews, having those reviews right in the app.
Right, okay. I live in London, and I want to actually see transit lines, tube lines, they're called here, and you just can't see that within Apple easily. And in fact, the graphics within the app, I find it hard to differentiate what's a tube station, what's a restaurant or whatever. All these images or icons are very similar in design. I mean, visually maybe it looks very appealing, but for me to just quickly differentiate what something is, I don't find that as easy as Google Maps. Does anyone else use Apple Maps on their iPhone if they've got one?
Yeah,
Sometimes I do by accident. I don't intend to, but sometimes it opens up things when I'm in certain apps.
Okay,
how you feel? Do you have the same like, oh, whoa, where I am?
Yeah.
This is up.
Exactly. The first thing I do is close Apple Maps and then open up Google Maps.
I have to say, because the icons are so similar, they need
Yes.
to do something with the icons.
One thing to keep in mind for Apple Maps is that they are very well integrated into Apple Watch, and I think more and more people will be using Apple Watch. And I've heard already that using them for navigating, using watch for navigating is very convenient. So I guess that there will be more people at least using the Apple Maps in the watch. But I use them in my iPhone as well. So.
Do you have an Apple Watch, Anne?
Not yet, but I'm definitely buying one. I think it's very useful for fitness and sports. That's the reason.
Okay. Anyone else have an Apple Watch or going to be getting one?
I probably will buy one.
Okay.
If Anne is buying, then I need to have one as well.
I'm thinking about it. Maybe second generation, though.
Yeah, that's a good thought, actually. I didn't get the iPhone until the third generation, so sometimes the first generation or so can be a little bit iffy. The same with the Kindle as well. But we're talking about Apple Maps again there. Jeff, I mean, what you said was quite interesting, because you said that sometimes the Apple Maps open by mistake or just by default in your phone, and then you quickly switch to Google Maps. Do you think you can ever see a stage over the next year or so when you will be wanting to open the Apple Maps by default over the Google ones?
Yeah, I mean, if it's feature parity is the big thing. It's when is it going to have the parity that I have with Google Maps. Google Maps does what I need it to do. I use it as my navigation system. I use it for transit maps. Those are the main times that I use it. And when Apple does the same thing, one advantage they have is that it's integrated into the operating system. So as soon as the operating system allows us to have the things that I need, then yeah, I'll consider it. The problem is, part of the problem is accuracy. I don't think that it's as accurate as what Google has. And the other one is just it is not the same experience right now. And so the best thing that Apple Maps can be, in my opinion, is a slightly not as great version of Google Maps. And then I might consider using it just because I don't have to use multiple things. But it's a curious thing that they're doing with Apple Maps in the first place. Like, what's their agenda and what are they doing, other than just having full control over what they're doing? But I just think the product's subpar.
What is their agenda? Lucas, I saw your eyes looking up there thinking, what is their agenda? I just had this flashback from old time, and I feel like, I know that this is a horrible example, but Flash versus Silverlight. It's more like, I feel like
Google wrote a fantastic product, and Apple was like, okay, we need to have something like that as well. It's not innovative enough, and so on and so on and so on. And they are great. I'm a big fan of Apple, by the way, but this example is showing that there are some areas that maybe are not the right way, because I feel like after this couple of years they are still behind, and Google is so quickly improve with their application that they have very big challenge to catch them up in the future.
I think there is the huge thing that here is that Google is investing a lot in that data. They are continuously working on it with the Google Street View and stuff, and we've seen this for years. And Apple just bought someone else's maps, and they're still using it without really improving anything. Sure. So it's a huge data issue that unless you own and work on data, it's always better than you just use an API or buy someone else's.
What you were saying there, Lucas, with Silverlight and Flash, Flash it was, wasn't it? It reminded me of Betamax and VHS video. And
yes, very, very, very nice example. Yeah.
Another one that it reminds me of is when Google bought DoubleClick, and then Yahoo and Microsoft went out and bought their own advertising agencies just because they felt like they needed it because that one move was made. I think that
or something, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, the interesting thing about VHS and Betamax was that, I mean, I don't remember much about it, but I remember that people saying to me that Betamax was the better product, but VHS ended up winning because it just gained that traction, gained that popularity as well. So maybe in time, Apple will keep on improving their map service, but more and more people will just use Google Maps because that's what everyone else is using as well. So
the problem is that they seem to be working on integrating the maps without improving the product first. So they now integrate it into Apple Watch, but it's the same maps. So they're not really working on the actual maps, but they are integrating them all over the place, hoping that that will improve their popularity, which might work if Apple Watch really picks up.
So was it a mistake launching Apple Maps before the service was really top-notch?
I think
hasn't affected their profit.
Yeah, I think that there is no, like, you can improve a product for ages and never launch it. Yeah. So launching it in beta is not a bad thing. I mean, it's not a mistake. It's not working on it further. That is a mistake, which I've been using Apple Maps for ages, and I've never seen any upgrade to them for all those ages. Like, I've never seen them improve. So that's a mistake, not launching them while they're not ready.
Well, I think that it's a mistake to not let other people have a choice. That's the big thing, is that if you don't even get to choose what you're using, and Apple Maps is inferior, you're pushing people in the wrong direction and having them do inaccurate things.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention this. I don't know if any of this a little weird. This value which exists only in this emotional value. So sometimes you can open the Google Street and travel to the places where you've been as a kid. Then you can go to see how it's changed a lot. And I'm doing this personally on London Victoria. London Victoria is in development for 10 years. And I want to see how that was in 2007, 2009, 2011, and how it looks right now. And I can see this on Google Street View because I can go back. And this is, I think that's amazing value, because if this product will be forever or for next 100 years, that will be something which will be used in so many places we can even not find where, maybe in education and so on and so on.
Yeah, I think Apple Maps couldn't afford to wait too much longer to launch. Apple couldn't wait too much longer to launch their own app platform, their map platform, because like Jeff was saying, you can't have just one map application. You got to have two, and Apple's really in the best position to have a competing map platform. And the other thing is, going back to what Ann was saying, Google has better data. They're investing in the data, but they're also an original source of the data. So when a local business, for example, starts looking at SEO, what's the first thing that they do? They say, oh, well, so it seems like I need to set up a Google Plus local business page. they're not saying, oh, let's go set up an Apple map page, which I don't even think exists. So, as far as finding local businesses, there's, Google has the best source of data because business owners know that that's what they need if they want to be found in Google.
I'm not even sure what Apple is using for local businesses. Yelp?
I think it's Yelp, yeah.
I know that they are using their reviews, but the actual location, because I think Yelp database is larger than Apple Maps database. Sometimes I find places on Yelp, just copy-paste the address and go to Apple Maps to find the place. But
Yeah,
there is no business slot any identified there. So
the last I read, I believe they were pulling from Foursquare, a few of the navigational apps, and Yelp. I think it's just a big collection of data, which, from a big data standpoint, I mean, how can you provide accurate data when you have all these different sources? And that's why Google Maps is just a clean source of data. People are managing it. There's Google Map Maker where people are reporting things that they're finding on the back end. They're crowdsourcing the maps. It's just very clean data set on Google Maps.
yeah, and it seems very weird decision from their part. Like they are integrating their maps all over the place, but they don't own any data, which is weird. Google is always very cautious about that. Unless they own the data, they are not using it. Like with social media indexation, we've seen that a lot. They mentioned that we cannot use Twitter as a ranking factor because we don't own that data. So we cannot invest into our algorithm, into that, integrate with our algorithm. And Apple, they have that product and they don't own any data within it, which is weird.
So one thing, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, yeah, and I was going to say the one time Google makes an exception with the the Yelp reviews. Look what happened there. Yelp ended up trying to sue them, and it just didn't work out. So that's still their final frontier. With Google is to get more reviews because Yelp until now has the best reviews, the best review. I mean, when I say best review filtering, I'm talking about as from the consumer side of things. As a business owner, it can be a bit tricky to manage those, but that's Google's one area that they are not dominating is with the reviews.
One thing that Apple have announced as well, of course, is that they're going to be launching iOS 9 fairly soon. And as part of that, they've also said they're going to be removing or taking away the newsstand facility. Now, I mean, I've used newsstand quite a bit in the past to actually publish a digital magazine. They're not saying that publishing functionality is going to be taken away, but what you're going to have to do in the future is publish something and it's going to be directly just as its own app, or you can also syndicate it to their new news app. Now, does anyone actually use Newsstand at all?
I used it once in order to get the digital marketing magazine that you published.
That's interesting. That is interesting. So, I mean, if you're not using it, that must say something in terms of why they're taking it away. Perhaps they certainly haven't done much updating to it at all. With their new news app, I noticed that they've got partnerships with lots of big publishers. So maybe that's something they're looking to do in the future, and it's more drive partnerships with bigger publishers rather than actually encourage independent publishing. But one functionality within the new news app, it's funny to say new news app, but is you can actually syndicate an RSS feed to there. So I believe that you can actually publish from a blog to the new news app. So Jeff, another blogger, said that perhaps might be something worthwhile looking at. Is that something that you've looked into at all?
I mean, I've syndicated my blog to things like Kindles and everything, but it's such a small percentage. And I think that my thoughts on this goes back to what Ann said earlier about voice search and how we're a generation that doesn't use voice search, so we think that it's bad, or we just don't think that it's the right thing, but a younger generation that's coming in might use it and they might thrive in it. I think that Newsstand and those types of things are really taking what a generation above even myself is used to doing, which is reading the paper, reading magazines, and they're just making it digital. But they're sort of, the reason why I don't think it's taken off is because it's not fitting the new format. It's taking the old format and putting it into a new medium, and I don't think that's usually what works very well. So if they're rethinking it and saying, how do we make it more engaging for a younger generation or for younger people who want to engage with content, I think that gives it a chance to do better. But I think that in general, discovery now works way differently than it did before. It used to be that you'd have a source put in front of you and then you'd discover. But now it's sort of the opposite. You don't even care about the source a lot of times. It's really what's being said. And so to limit how we look at things and make our discovery based on publications, I think it's just the opposite of where things are going. So
at the moment, you don't have the intention of syndicating Jeffalytics to lots of other places or a few other places and releasing content to other platforms. You're simply focusing on publishing the best content you can on your blog and driving people directly to that.
That's a good question. I think that I'm all about as many people reading it as possible. And I'd even automatically push one format to other things. So I'm not against it. I mean, anything you can do to get more traffic is obviously a good thing. Flipboards work pretty well for some of my blogs. Zeit will work well for blogs. So those are mediums that absolutely should be considered. So if Newsstand can take the place of that, yeah, I'm all about it. Personally, I concentrate more on just getting it done because it's not my primary profession.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I was also going to link to Anne there as well because Anne, you're a content publisher as well. You publish a lot of content. So you've published content on lots of different authoritative blogs in the past. But are you looking at the potential of syndicating that content to apps as well, or is that something you're actively doing just now?
I'm not actively doing that, but it's been on my to-do list for a couple. I don't want to say years, but more than a couple of months. I have not had an opportunity because I've been busy, but that's something I would love to look into. But again, I wish I could be more on top of these newer things coming in, like the app that we discussed before, the Periscope or whatever. Yeah, like all those things that I would love to check all the new formats and the apps and things. But I have only 24 hours a day.
Exactly. Sometimes you're better off focusing on what you're great at, doing a good job of it. And
yes, I know. I've been in the industry for so many years, and I barely keep up with what I'm used to be doing. So I produce content, but I don't have time to explore new things, which I know is a bad thing, and my plan is to change that. But I'm old school, so I'm good at the old channels that I'm used to. I mean, I know Google Plus is newer than everything else, and I'm using it. Google Hangouts too, but I know I need to do a better job at that.
Well, you don't look old school. So Lucas, I know you do a lot of blogging on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Do you notice much interaction on the LinkedIn app or the LinkedIn website, or is it difficult to track the difference between them both?
No, it's LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like my holy grail of social media. I love LinkedIn. I was talking today to my audience on IEC in Bucharest that LinkedIn is this is the best social media right now, I think. And I have nice audience there, and people are reading. I have comments. If I would like to go above that, I think I am also a fan of audiobooks and audio magazines. So just record this, and hiring someone who sounds like David Attenborough, for example, reading my blog. I
thought you were going to say David Bain there, no?
You know that you are on top of my list. Yeah, David Bain or David Attenborough, and serving content in this way. Why? Because imagine, again, I will get back to the bus which is going through London at morning, and you have so many people, but you have your headphones and you have your audio magazine, and you can listen. And for 1 hour, I think Jeff and his blog could be there, and there would be a couple of articles, very interesting way of serving this. And then someone like me who would be listening to these articles would come to office 9 o'clock and would be like, have this kind of inspiration. This is what e-consultancy is doing with their newsletter. They're sending this very clever way. They're sending this 8 o'clock at morning, so everybody who is going to the office are reading what's going on in the online world, and then you have 9 o'clock when you're starting to work, and you have ability to utilize this. So I would say, like, you know, like blogging and this kind of written articles, that's my top priority, but also audiobooks, and this audio version of the written article is something I would keep focus, and I will be keeping focus on.
All right, okay. And Chris, obviously you're a content publisher as well. Do you tend to focus in your blog? Are you looking at other syndication, perhaps offline opportunities, offline digital opportunities?
Yeah, as far as offline, you know, I'm looking to publish a book soon, but for syndication, something that I want to start doing is taking the articles on our website and some of the resources that we've created, whether they're written or video, and I want to turn them all into audio, and then just start publishing them and syndicating them to iTunes, Audible. I want to, you know, take some of the longer content pieces and maybe try to put them into an Audible audiobook, even if it's shorter. Because I see, you know, audiobooks on Audible that are, you know, only like an hour or two long. So, you know, it doesn't have to be a full-length book to be an audiobook, but getting the, you know, the videos and converting that into audio and getting it syndicated to these different sources is really big. Vimeo, Dailymotion, you know, some of these like second-tier video platforms that people aren't necessarily using, I still see an opportunity if you can find a way to automatically take one video and syndicate it to all these sources. It's just going to build your brand up. And then placing those videos in less common places. You know, Tim Ferriss, when he did the 4-hour work week, or no, 4-hour body, one of them, he put it on uTorrent, which is commonly known for torrenting and whatnot. But he put it up there for free, you know, the bonus chapters or whatever, and it drove a ton of impressions. It was Amazon. So, like, you know, that's not really syndication, but just syndicating to less known places and just getting your content in as many places as possible, if it's, you know, efficient, if it can be done efficiently, is going to provide a lot of value, just because you're reaching all these different, you know, corners of the web where people are hanging out.
It was interesting that both you, Chris, and also Lucas mentioned audio, but you both said audio books rather than podcasts. Is that because your perception of audio books is higher quality and you're not really focusing on podcasts?
I don't consider this to be much difference. I think very often I'm using these two words as the synonyms.
Right. And you the same, Chris? Huh?
No, I see them as very different. I listen to an audiobook a week. I am not really, I don't listen to too many podcasts anymore, but they're definitely, to me, they're a lot different. You know, audiobook, something that you're going to listen to, you know, for up to 20 hours and just get a very in-depth knowledge on a specific topic, whereas a podcast, you know, the subject's going to vary. It's going to be in the same category, but it's going to vary from chapter to chapter. There's less flow. It's not really like a, you know, in-depth exploration of a specific topic. It's more about, you know, information about new things that are coming up. There's less connection between all the different videos.
I mean, it's interesting because it takes us back to SEO there as well, because it's words and it's what words mean to different people as well. Because I remember talking about internet marketing 10 years ago and talking about internet marketing as providing internet marketing services. But then it changed in terms of general meaning, and that a lot of people thought internet marketing meant make money online. And online marketing or digital marketing was maybe a better description of agency type services. And the perception of what words mean can change significantly over time. So, you know, it goes back to the very simple notions of keyword research and how your own perceptions don't necessarily mean what your audience is looking for. So, yeah, I found that intriguing. Just your own thoughts on that. But let's just talk about the very last topic, and that's Dick Costolo quits as Twitter CEO. So Twitter, obviously, they have 300 million active users or so. They've got Periscope. They had about 1 million people signing up for Periscope in the first 10 days. They are also earning about $500 million per quarter. So sounds like a decent amount of money. But, of course, investors, share owners, they don't seem to be that happy with how it's going. So does Twitter need to change commercially, in terms of its business model, to be more successful moving forwards. So maybe have each one of your thoughts just on that quickly. And do you think Twitter's current model is sustainable for the longer term?
I don't know. I've never clicked a Twitter ad in my life. And I'm on Twitter like every hour, every other hour a day. So I definitely see that I love Twitter, and I feel bad about the fact that they have trouble monetizing it well. But I don't see how the current model is really effective, because as a user, I've never clicked an ad. I have seen a lot, but unless like on Facebook, I usually feel like clicking the link that they are sponsoring, that is a sponsored link, and I can see that it's an ad, but I still think that I should click it because it so aligns to what I'm interested in and to what I'm even currently good at. And with Twitter, if you compare these two social media platforms, with Twitter, I never feel like clicking. It's irrelevant mostly and not interesting for me. So I think that they should really think more about targeting, I guess, and even more other types of ads, not text links. That's something different would help. But as currently, as a user, as a customer, I don't see them being effective. And I tried advertising on Twitter several times as well, and I've seen the same results. There are even clicks and views, and no real publicity, no traffic, no recognition, no brand value. And I've tried several times. So,
that's incredible, because I mean, you're a power Twitter user. You've got 49,000 followers on Twitter. So if you haven't clicked on a Twitter ad, that's a significant concern, surely, to the guys running the business.
And I'm active on Facebook much less. Like on Twitter, in real time. I'm using TweetDeck that's delivering my feeds and my what I'm tracking to my desktop. So I'm all the time on Twitter. Like, not that I need to go there to be active. On Facebook, I'm probably active twice a day, and I click ads there. And on Twitter, I don't. I see them sometimes, but I just don't feel like clicking them.
Jeff, have you ever clicked an ad on Twitter?
No. So it's funny. I live in San Francisco, across the street from Twitter's world headquarters, and so I sort of walk past it every day. And it's funny that they don't really seem like they're struggling too much, and so that's an interesting thing. But I've also started advertising myself on Twitter, and the results have been very poor. Like, no results. Nobody's clicked. Either the clicks have happened, but no sales or no anything. And so it reminds me of less of Google's infancy and more of Facebook's infancy, where you were, trying to get people to click on ads and disrupt them in a time-wasting way. A lot of times with Facebook and Twitter, you're going to be entertained, not to be interrupted. And so I think that, I've never clicked on a Facebook ad, to be honest with you, but I've considered it at least once those ads became better. So once Facebook started with their new formats that worked a little bit better to the medium of how I was consuming it, at least I would start to like pages or start to do things based on sponsorships. So I think that what it's going to come down to for Twitter is their first pass, what they have right now, it's bad both for the user, as Ann said, and it's really bad for the advertiser too. I was super frustrated just trying to get my ads in place until they figure out a way to make it so that the users click on it and then more advertisers want to use it. I don't see it succeeding, but I think that to say that it's not going to happen is, there's so many people invested in making that happen that I think that it will. It's just that it's not going to be what it looks like today.
So, Lucas, is Periscope the big savior for Twitter?
Oh, you know the answer. You saw me recently, how I was broadcasting from the airport flying, and that was especially because I saw you broadcasting before, and I was like, Periscope is something new, and I'm very excited about this. I'm observing what Guy Kawasaki is doing with his presentations. Every time he's presenting something, it's instant on Periscope. I think it's a great thing. However, there is always the open debate what is the best way to use this, and that's one thing. And according to Twitter and monetization, I think I will agree with what Anne said about the creation of the adverts. It's not the best, and also the targeting is way behind what Facebook right now is offering. So I think that needs to be improved. These two things needs to be improved. Periscope, we will see. I think it's a great application for, and it's a little too early to say where it can be used. So far, like I mentioned, I saw that people are broadcasting their conferences, they broadcasting their travels, and if some people are skeptic about the marketing value of this, I can say that Vine, which is probably the craziest social media ever platform, is doing very well. So let's give them a little of more time, and we will see what will happen.
Well, what about you, Chris? What's your thoughts on the future of Twitter?
I think they'll definitely figure out the advertising. When I've never clicked on a Twitter ad either, which is crazy now that I think about it. But when I go to Twitter, there's a lot of junk to filter through. I'm usually scrolling pretty quick. I'm going to a few lists of mine. I'm going to check on a few influencers like Grant Cardone and some of these guys and just seeing what they're up to. And I'm checking it frequently. I would say 10 to 15 times a day. But whenever I'm there quick. I'm moving quickly, and I'm trying to look for the few gems and all the other tweets that are going on, and I'm not going to click on an ad. There's just no way. Also, the ads do seem to be relevant. A lot of ads about credit cards and other stuff that I not really interested in. So I do think they'll figure it out though, and I think maybe a CPM might be better because there's so much traffic, and I'm not really sure how they're going to figure it out, but I am confident they'll figure it out. But we've tried Twitter advertising and got poor results, and now we're investing in more organic type of Twitter marketing strategy where if you look at our Rank KO Twitter feed, we have a lot of activity going on, and we're investing $1,000 a month in a more organic type of service that is basically following and unfollowing people automatically. And you're controlling a cluster of accounts that will retweet a few of the mother accounts, and it's very, very effective at building followers for all 10 accounts and also for driving traffic to your website and to your articles and videos and whatnot. So just using Twitter organically is 100 times more effective than the advertising. Right, but I think Periscope and Meerkat, that's really something that's going to explode, and I'm trying to get on that too. Just one of the things we did a week or two ago, basically I was doing a video tutorial on something, just me discussing something in front of the camera. We put it up on YouTube. But meanwhile, one of my employees was just behind me with a cell phone with Periscope on, and he was just recording the behind the scenes. And it was just the idea. I seen someone on Periscope doing that. It was behind the scenes news studio, and it was pretty cool. So we're just getting creative and trying to find new ways to use Periscope. But I think it's a really, really good opportunity. If you could build up a following on Meerkat and Periscope, I think it's going to be one of the next big channels that you can market your business on.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. I mean, Periscope, I've only done 2 broadcasts on it myself, and I did one last night. Second broadcast, over 150 people watched. And you're not going to get that just starting out in any other network, so it really is a nascent opportunity at the moment. And if you're on Twitter with quite a few followers, there's an opportunity to quickly develop quite a big following on there. So I guess watch the space for that one.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now, PR firms, crisis management firms, and reputation management firms, they're kind of nervous about both of these live streaming tools because you don't know what's going on. I mean, that, for example, that news studio where one of the employees was doing the behind the scenes video. Well, there's other people standing around. If they don't know that person's live streaming and they say something on the stream, that's controversial, there you go. You've got a PR crisis on your hand. And an article came out recently. Someone was writing about how to use Periscope for business, and that was one of the big concerns they were talking about, is that it's just a disaster waiting to happen. Just a matter of time before something happens where someone says something or sees something that shouldn't have been publicly available. So that's just something to look out for too.
Wow, and you're just about opening up a new conversation there that we could keep on going for another hour, but I've got to be really conscious about your time as well, because we've been on air for over an hour here. You've offered a lot of incredible content, and you're the kind of people that can keep on offering amazing content, but I reckon that's just about taking us to the end of what we're going to be talking about today. But let's conclude by just everyone perhaps giving one piece to take away. So perhaps your number one thought on what we've discussed so far today, and also your own contact details maybe as well. So starting off with Anne.
Well, my big takeaway today is that not only I, but we all need to be more up to date with what the younger generation is doing and how they're using and what apps are there to try. Not all of them should be like for marketing or anything, but just more, maybe a separate day a week when I'm just exploring what's new on social media and what apps exist and what I can do with them, what others are doing with them. So I think that should be definitely on everyone's to-do list, because the web is evolving so fast. And like I said, you can follow me or just check me out on Twitter as @Smarty and tweet to me, and I always reply. So that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay, great.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. You offered a lot of great value there. So and just keep on learning, you were saying there. So Jeff.
Yeah, you can reach me at Jeffalytics on Twitter. And my big takeaway from today, it just confirms a lot of things that I thought about. Just Google in general and their position in the world of organizing all the information. And if you want to be aligned with Google in the future, it's all about creating information they can consume. And so as a content creator, it's not always the medium that's available today. It's understanding the new mediums as well, like Anne said. And so keep an eye on the future, but don't let it get in the way of what's working for you today. So it's sort of like 80% of your time spend on things that work today, maybe 20% of your time, like Google's 20% time, spend it on research and preparing yourself for the future and trying new things.
Great thought. And where's the best place for someone to get hold of you?
Just jeffalytics.com is my website, and it's a blog talking about analytics for the most part, and a few other things like SEO and WordPress.
Lovely. Okay, let's move on to Lucas.
So you can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn, Lukasz Zelezny, and my wrap up would be to say that we have this kind of, I would say, little second revolution. So many things is right now available very quickly, evolving and changing, and I had very interesting conversation today with Cosmin, who is CEO of SEO Monitor in Bucharest, and we agreed about that. It's a little this time like people are thinking about things that they were always doing, and they are so much sticking into, and maybe they shouldn't, because sometimes when you hear like, oh, you're reading from Kindle, only paper books, and I'm saying, you know what, 600 years ago there was a guy, Gutenberg, and probably when he invented fonts, someone came to him and say like, oh no, only handwriting, and then people started to use fonts and printing books. So this is like an example where we are right now in the time. It will be evolving, and the tools, the new tools like Periscope and Meerkat will take over, and there will be like little second revolution very soon. So that will be my, and thank you very much for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks for joining us. Yeah, and Chris, what are your thoughts on today, and how would people get in touch with you?
So I guess my main takeaways would be, get your data and your information where Google and Apple and all these other sources where it's coming from. So, make sure that your business can be found, within Apple Maps, within Siri, within Google Now, within Google Search, obviously, and just, look at where those companies and those platforms are getting that data, and make sure that your data is there so it can be found. The other takeaway, I guess, would be, with the social media, I don't want to say I'm in the younger generation or the older, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. So, I'm used to new things coming out, but it seems like recently it just got turned up like 3 notches. There's like new things coming out every day. Meerkat, I just discovered that last week. I'm on it. I'm checking it out. I don't know much about it, but I know that, if one of these things takes off and I'm there early, at that point it's worth a little bit of my time. So if you can have someone else using a camera and setting up Periscope and letting it go automatically, it's not too much time. You're killing two birds with one stone. So take advantage of all these opportunities. As far as finding me, you can go to ranko.com. That's with 2 Ks, Ranko. And then on Twitter, we're Ranko USA, and tweeting about reputation management most of the time and a little bit about SEO.
And I'm David Bain, Head of Growth at analyticsseo.com, and you can also catch me interviewing online marketing gurus over at digitalmarketingradio.com. Now, if you're watching this show as a recording, remember to watch the next episode live. So head over to thisweekinorganic.com and sign up to watch the next show in real time. But for those of you watching live, thank you for participating, and remember to continue sharing your thoughts using the hashtag TWIO on Twitter. So that's just 4 letters at TWIO. But until next time, have a fantabulous weekend, and thank you all for joining us. Adios. Cheers everyone, thank you for being a part of it.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.